Diamond C, fundamental for success number 6, do the right thing always. In the words of Dr. King, the time is always right to do what is right. Demonstrate an unwavering commitment to doing the right thing in every action you take and in every decision that you make, even when no one's looking. Always be honest and tell the truth. If you make a mistake, own up to it. Don't let pride keep you from apologizing and making it right. So for this fundamental, I wanted to break from the format that we've been using in this series, just to share a related story, personal story of my own with you all. Hopefully it's inspirational in this idea of doing the right thing always. So several years ago when the company was much smaller, I think it was around 8 to 10 years ago, we had a CPA come out to do an audit on the company's financials, on our books and all of our accounting, because we'd been through a kind of rough transition of accounting personnel, team members within the company, had changed leadership in that, and there was a gap of a few months where we were without financial expertise on staff, and several other amazing team members picked up the slack and helped hold it together in that transition period. So once we got the new manager hired, we said we need to audit the books for that time period and make sure that nothing was missed, that we're in good shape here, and so I remember sitting in my office, and the CPA had been out for a couple of days, and she comes over to my office and says she's kind of got some bad news. She discovered a pretty big miss, and she proceeds to explain to me that in that transition period we had missed a few weeks of payroll tax payments the previous year, and a few weeks of payroll tax payments equaled in that time a little over $200,000 that we had missed paying the IRS on time. And then with penalties and interest added to that, the grand total she estimated was going to be around $300,000 to get those payments made up. And it was in a time, this happened in a time when we were really in a cash crunch through a season of growth, and with that transition in finance management, it was just a rough patch in Diamond C history back then. And so that $300,000 was almost scary to me. It was painful in the time, in the moment. I knew that if we said, let's pay those tax payments as we should, that there were going to be implications with vendor partners and perhaps team members, and how would we manage the cash of the company through the next several weeks. And so I asked her back, what are our options? What can we do? And she says, well, you really need to pay these payments now. They're late and they're accruing penalties and interest constantly. Or I've seen some other situations before where we can change some dates on the form and basically sweep it under the rug. And I've never had any problem with that before. So we could do that if you don't want to pay them. And I was just overwhelmed by that, like even being an option. And, in this place of feeling like my back was against the wall with cash and finance management anyway in that moment. And after just a few moments of consideration, I said, okay, do that. That's okay. Change the dates. I said, okay, no problem. And turned around and walked out and went on to do it. And the moment that she shut the door, it hit me like a freight train, just like these memories and stories that I'd heard my parents tell for years, and their pursuit of always doing the right thing and never doing the wrong thing, never being deceitful or sweeping under the rug, so to speak. And the moment she shut the door, I stood up and followed her back to the office she was working in. And she hadn't even sat down in the chair yet. And I said, actually, we've got to do it right. And I know it's going to be painful, and I'm not sure what all we're going to do from here, but we've got to do it right. I can't live with changing the dates knowing that this is wrong. And so just put the dates correctly and we'll deal with it. And she looked at me like I was crazy, but I just said, that's what we've got to do. So I felt good about that. Absolutely felt good about making the right decision. But, went home that evening just burdened with knowing that, we had this few hundred $1,000 surprise payments in the next few weeks that we weren't expecting. That was going to be really painful. And here's where the story gets interesting. The next morning, of course, we're going through this season, like I said, of checking all the books, auditing everything, all of our payments and expenses. And one of our team members comes in and says she's discovered where she believes that we've been overpaying a vendor, one of our vendor partners, substantially for quite some time. Again, during that transition period where the systems just weren't very tight, and so she prints out a report and says, "Here's what I think the total is," and we call up the vendor and say, "Here's a situation, payment terms between your system and ours, and we believe we've been overpaying you for all this time." And the president of the company says, "Let me call you back in a couple hours. We just want to run all of our reports too, make sure everything matches up to your reports." He calls back a couple hours later and says, "Yeah, you're right. You're right. We have accepted your overpayment of almost $300,000, just a little more than what the taxes, the payroll taxes and penalties were from the story on the previous day." And he says, "And there's only one thing to do, the right thing. We'll get a check in the mail today." And I was blown away. By how I felt like in the moment, for sure. And still, when I think about the story today, how really God honored my choosing to do the right thing in that moment, the day before, with this timing and story and how it played out, to get us through this challenging season that we were facing. And the legacy and the example that vendor set for me, also that vendor partner, and not batting an eye and saying, "Yeah, you're right. There's only one thing to do, the right thing. We'll issue the refund today." So my point is just to say that, yeah, when our backs are against the wall, sometimes when we're stressed out, when things are not going so well, we're especially then susceptible to errors in our judgment, to not doing the right thing, to accepting some dishonesty or deceit, or not doing the right thing ourselves. So I think that we have to decide. And from that experience that I just told about back then, I decided right then, like, it will never be a consideration of mine again. It will never, ever be a consideration of mine again. And I think that's around this fundamental. How do we do the right thing always? I think we have to decide right now. Every one of us has to decide right now that the wrong thing is simply not an option, because we've all got that in our gut, in our core, right? In our heart. We know what's right and what's wrong. So we have to decide right now that the wrong thing is simply not an option. And we have to do the right thing. Own up to a mistake when we make it. None of us are perfect. We're all going to make mistakes along the way and learn hard lessons along the way. I've learned plenty of them. But I do believe that God honors, the world honors, our friends, our family members, good leadership, all those things, all those people honor doing the right thing always. So commit yourself to doing the right thing always, and it will indeed fuel your growth and success, and the growth and success of your team members and our customers and the community abroad.